Here is a writer at work. Why does he write this way? What is he attempting to do? What kind of person is he? Learning to understand style will help you answer these questions and greatly enrich your understanding of what you read. An author, first of all, is both a craftsman and an artist, carefully combining words to convey his thoughts and his feelings. He has available an almost unlimited number of ways in which he can put these words together, but he chooses the one way which to him best expresses himself in writing. The way that an author expresses his ideas and feelings is called his style. Every effective author puts something of himself into his writing, creating a unique style of his own. Now, an author writes for a reader. You, for instance. You read his words, and you attempt to understand his meaning. If you develop the mature skill of understanding style, you'll gain a deeper understanding of an author's meaning and a greater appreciation of why and how an author writes as he does. Let's see some of the ways to understand style and improve your reading. A first step in understanding style is to try to discover the author's purpose in writing. Everything is written with some purpose in the writer's mind. For example, some things are written primarily to inform. That was the purpose of Paul de Cruyff's book, Microbe Hunters. He wrote it to give information about men who have made important contributions in the battle against disease. Other books are meant to argue or persuade. For example, Silent Spring by Rachel Carson was written to convince readers that the chemicals used to kill insects are dangerous to other animal life as well. So a writer's purpose may be to inform or persuade or something else. It might be to satirize or poke not too gentle fun at something. Take this book, Don Quixote, a satire by Miguel de Cervantes. In creating the character of Don Quixote, Cervantes' main purpose was probably to ridicule the highly idealistic romances of chivalry that were popular in his time. Don Quixote suffers from the misguided notion that he must right all the wrongs of the world. In his mind, sheep become transformed into armies, and windmills into giants that he must overcome. But satire, information, and persuasion are examples of only 3 of the many purposes an author may have for expressing himself the way he does. A second step in understanding style is to consider the literary form which the author uses. For example, take the famous ride of Paul Revere. His ride is an authentic historical event that's been written about in the straightforward narrative style of a textbook.
Paul Revere rode through the countryside, warning that the British were coming.
And in the bouncing rhythm of Longfellow's well-known poem.
Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere.
Notice how the literary form, a poem, affects the style in the choice and rhythm of the words. Take another theme, the journey of a ship in 1609 that was driven off course by a storm and wrecked near Bermuda. The style used by an historian of the period in a work describing the event is apparent from its title.
A true repertory of the wreck and redemption of Sir Thomas Gates Knight, upon and from the islands of the Bermudas.
We would expect this style to be very different from that used by Shakespeare, who probably used the same event as the basis for his play, The Tempest. Act first. Scene 1 on a ship at sea. A tempestuous noise of thunder and lightning heard. Enter a shipmaster and a boatswain.
Boatswain? Here, master, what cheer? Good. Speak to the mariners. Fall to it yearly, or we run ourselves aground. Bestir, bestir!
We might also compare writings about the flood described in the Bible. A biblical account of the event has one style.
And the rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights.
While archaeological studies of the same event have another style.
The flood. That was the only possible explanation of this great clay deposit beneath the hill at Ur.
And so the style reflects the literary form chosen by the writer. A third step in understanding style is to examine the characteristic language patterns which an author uses in expressing himself. William Faulkner's style, for example, as we can see in a selection about a flood from The Wild Palms, is noted for its frequent use of long, involved sentences.
It was as if the water itself were in three strata, separate and distinct, the bland and unhurried surface bearing a frothy scum and a miniature flotsam of twigs, and screening as though by vicious calculation the rush and fury of the flood itself. And
The sentence goes on at length, slowly building the tremendous emotional effect that is characteristic of Faulkner's writing. A much different sort of language pattern is frequently used by Ernest Hemingway. In this story, Big Two-Hearted River, we find a series of sentences, also about water, that shows Hemingway's use of short, simple sentences to produce a sense of vigor and directness in his writing.
Nick looked down into the pool from the bridge. It was a hot day. A kingfisher flew up the stream. It was a long time since Nick had looked into a stream and seen trout. They were very satisfactory.
Still another thing to consider in understanding style is the author's choice of specific words and the particular ways in which he puts them together to suggest meanings and feelings. For example, there are many ways that a cloudy sky has been described. In a newspaper.
A mass of low stratus clouds reduced visibility.
In Homer's Odyssey.
Great Zeus enshrouded land and sea in dark clouds.
By Edgar Allan Poe.
The clouds hung oppressively low in the heavens.
Each style helps to create a certain effect. Poe, for example, was a master at setting a mood of mystery and terror. This sentence is actually part of a longer sentence in the opening of The Fall of the House of Usher. It's easy to see how Poe's choice of words and the way in which he puts them together affect the tone and mood of what he is writing. And the style of the work as a whole reflects Poe himself and the elements of strangeness that were part of his personality. The same is true for any writer. His selection of purpose, literary form, words, and language patterns are all part of his unique style. It is through his method of handling such characteristics of style that the writer often reveals something of his own personality. By understanding the style of Hemingway, for example, you can gain a sense of the directness and vigor that were aspects of his personality. From an understanding of the style of Faulkner, you can see something of the moodiness and depth of feeling that were part of the man. In this way, an understanding of style helps you come to know authors as persons with feelings as well as ideas to express. When a writer is honest with himself and his ideas, his personality will be reflected in his style. You will become a more mature reader as you learn to seek the additional clues to meaning that an author's style reveals. Understanding style helps you know the man as well as his writing, and so makes the act of reading more enjoyable and meaningful.